Hello viewers, thank you for coming back. So we will be starting another hands-on session which for designing and implementing a data science solution on Azure. The next hands-on would be create a pipeline uh, which is in continuation to these all hands-on that we have covered earlier. You can visit my YouTube channel and look into the previous video tutorials. So I have opened this link here. So create a pipeline hands-on. So what is covered within this topic? You can use the Azure Machine Learning SDK software development kit to perform all the tasks required to create and operate a machine learning solution in Azure. Okay. So rather than performing these tasks individually, you can create a pipeline to orchestrate the steps required to prepare data, run training scripts, register models, and other tasks. So this is pipeline is nothing but automating all these different tasks, okay, together. Okay, so I have already created my workspace and provisioned compute resources and compute instances, and also cloned the notebook from GitHub repository. All the steps are covered in my previous YouTube channel. If you follow one by one from top to bottom, you will be able to get all these information. Okay, so I have opened my notebook and which is under Microsoft Azure Machine Learning Studio. Within that notebook, I am opening the 8th hands-on, create a pipeline, and this is my notebook. Open here. This work from the start. My compute instance is stopped. Let me start the compute instance. It will take some time to start. In the meanwhile, I will cover what it does. Okay. So, as earlier mentioned, the pipeline automates the whole process of generating this data, basically not generating the data, but basically preparing the data, running the Python script onto the data, like training and testing a set of data, then registering the models and creating environment, all those tasks. It could be automated via a pipeline, okay, Azure Machine Learning pipeline. Now, to do that, first we need to connect to our workspace, and then once we are connected to our Azure Machine Learning workspace, which is already created, here we will be printing Azure Machine Learning SDK version as well as our machine learning workspace name. Okay, so then we will be preparing the data. So basically we are getting default data from the data store, that default data stores information, and there we'll be uploading these diabetes files, okay, CSV files for diabetic patient data. Okay, now out of these data sets we'll be creating a tabular data. Okay, and from that tabular data we'll be registering that data set into our data set as an asset. Okay, now once that tabular data set has been created, we will go and create a respective pipeline folder where we'll be keeping all the artifacts related to our pipeline steps that we are going to create. So let's start. My compute instance is running here, and so let's print Azure SDK or ML version and my workspace name, and then create the data set by uploading these two files into data set and then creating a tabular data file. So data set already registered. That means it has not performed all these data, all these operations, because the data set is already present. Okay. So if diabetes data set is not present, then it will perform all these things. in our previous steps, in our previous uh, experiments or hands-on, we have already created this data set. So it has a script and just mentioned data set already registered. Okay. Now here we'll be creating the pipeline folder where we'll be keeping all the artifacts related to our pipeline. This is diabetes dataset experiment that we are going to run. So all the experiment information being uh, all the experiment script is being written here. That script will also be written to the experiment folder. Okay, and here I can show you that experiment name. So this is our diabetes pipeline. Here we have prepared our select diabetes file or a script that we are going to run via pipeline. Now in this step, here we are creating our training diabetes Python script, which is going to train the model. Okay, and to train the model, we are splitting the data into training and testing data set and labeling all those data set. Okay, we are using decision tree classifier to train the model, and this is our algorithm for running the machine learning experiment. We are trying to predict whether our patient is diabetic or non-diabetic. Here we are going to print the accuracy, AUC score, ROC curve. We are going to plot ROC curve as well, and then we are trying to use or store this model. So the trained model will be named as this one and saved into our workspace. Okay, and then we'll register the model within our model as asset. Okay, within our Azure Machine Learning Studio. Okay, now let's run this script as well, and it has been completed. And if I refresh the page, you can see this folder where this trained diabetes Python file has been created. You can open it in a separate tab as well, clicking into the file number or file name. Now prepare a compute environment for the pipeline steps. So this is where we are going to create a compute environment. Okay, or basically we are going to provision a cluster to run our experiment. Okay, compute cluster, and the compute cluster VM size is v2 with 2 cores or 2 nodes. Okay, and once that is provisioned, we will be using that VM cluster which is part of our workspace, and then run our experiment and the pipelines. Steps, we are going to create an environment file here now, which is nothing but an YAML file. So first let's create the cluster. So it's going to provision the cluster with these sizes. Okay, here you can see the cluster has been provisioned, and then we'll create the environment file. Environment file is nothing but it says which all the package and what version you are importing as a dependency to run your Python script, right, or experiment. Okay, so this will be creating a environment file within the same diabetes pipeline folder. So if I refresh again, I can see that environment file as well within this diabetes pipeline folder. So here you can see all the dependencies required to run our experiment. Okay, and then now note that we have a conda configuration file, you can create an environment and use it to run the configuration for the file. So now that file has been created, environment file, will be utilizing that to specify the conda specification or the environment, okay, where of our Docker container on the cluster. Okay, so we are registering our environment to use or utilize to run our experiment, then create a new run object for the pipeline. So we have created a run object, then use that compute that we have created, right, which is named as pipeline cluster, which we named it here, right, cluster name. Okay, and the cluster name is registered as a pipeline cluster. Okay, and then we are specifying the environment. Okay, so what we are doing here is specifying a conda environment, specifying a workspace, or registering a environment within our workspace, then creating a run configuration, assigning pipeline cluster or compute resource to our run configuration, and also the environment, registered environment within our pipeline run configuration. So all these steps, let's run it. It will do all these steps, and then once the run configuration is created, now we are going to create and run a pipeline. Okay, so this is where it is covering how to create the pipeline. Okay, and then run it. So our data set is already created with this name. We are trying to call that data set or get that data set within this variable or object. Okay, now prep data. Oh, so this is calling another function to prepare the data, right? That prep data is script basically being called here. This script, okay, to prepare the data for test and training data. Okay, once the training and test data set has been prepared, that will be passed as a object here within our run script. It will utilize the same experiment folder. It will use a prep Python script to prepare the data. It will take the raw data as input and then prepare the test and training data set. It will use the same cluster that we prepared, or the pipeline cluster that we prepared, right? It will use the run configuration which we prepared early here. This is the run configuration, pipeline run configuration basically. And allow reuse means we can use it multiple times, right? So now the train step, this is preparation step and this is training step. Okay, again we are doing the same thing, but here we are passing train and register the model. Okay, that's the next step. Okay, in this step what we are doing, we are passing the training diabetes script to run a training model, okay, or prepared training model onto our prepared data set as input. Okay, now we are utilizing the same compute target or compute cluster. We are utilizing the same run configuration and we using so pipeline steps. Now we have defined here. This is not executing the step. This is where we are defining the steps. Okay, now here comes the execution of the pipeline. Okay, so we are importing the required packages, experiment, pipeline, and run details. Okay, now pipeline steps are mentioned here, prep step and training step. Okay, in the form of array. So that we have created here, right? Prep step and training step, that we are mentioning it here. Now this pipeline would be run within our workspace, right? So all those steps are mentioned. So pipeline here, up to this we have built our pipeline. Now with all the steps, if we have more steps we can also specify using a comma separated value. Now Once all the steps of the pipeline are mentioned, okay, then we will pass this pipeline information to our experiment. So we'll submit this as an experiment, okay, and this experiment will be run within our workspace with this name. So this is our experiment name, machine learning diabetes pipeline. Okay, now pipeline submitted for execution. That's what will be printed when we will run this script, and it will show in the widget all the steps or the status of our pipeline execution. Okay, so let's run it. Pipeline is built. After some time it will show that pipeline submitted for execution, and then here it is showing in the pipeline widget that is preparing for the execution. Okay, this is our diabetes data set. Prepare data not started. It is showing all the steps that it is being run in the pipeline. You can use your mouse wheel to zoom in and zoom out. Once the data preparation is showing, the preparation data preparation is running, training and register model is not started. So these are the two steps that we have, right? Okay, so data preparation, I think, still running, and this step is still running. Once this step is complete, it will move to train and register model, which is still showing not started because it's still in the previous step. Okay, here you can see CPU and RAM usage going up, right? Because our cluster is utilizing that CPU and RAM. Let's pause for some time. Once the next step is started, I will show it again. Okay, so now the data preparation steps has been finished, and then we are into train and register model. That step is showing as being run, right? So this is what we have. Data preparation steps finished. This is the summary, and then it has moved to the next step. Step run is train and register model, the second step of our pipeline, and it is being run. Execution summary. Okay, it has finished, so we'll be able to see finished status here. Okay, so train and register model is also complete, and it is providing the link to all those artifacts that have been created, from where you can just check the generated data, registered model, everything. Okay, and this is nothing but to show you the pipeline steps, basically each pipeline steps, matrices related to each pipeline steps. Okay, so rows were 1000 rows, and out of that we process all the 10,000 rows. Okay, this is our ROC page. If you want to open it, you can just search in the web, not search in the web, copy and paste here. Anyway, that's it related to Azure ML artifact. This is our AUC value, and this is our accuracy of the model. Okay, so these are all different matrices that we are printing after our execution of the pipeline. Now, this is all about showing all the model versions that that got registered as part of our training. So we have two diabetes model versions, compute cluster and pipeline. It was created earlier while we completed the hands-on for compute resources, working with the compute resources, and this is created now with training context pipeline, okay, with AUC and accuracy. Now we can publish this pipeline, which you can see here in the pipeline as an asset, okay, so that at a later point of time you can reuse those same pipeline again and again with the new data. Okay, so let's run it, and it's publishing the pipeline with this name here, and this is the REST endpoint for that pipeline, okay, from where you can endpoint, which you can see in the endpoint page on the pipeline endpoint tab in Azure Machine Learning. You can also find a URI as a property of the published pipeline object. Okay, so first let's go to pipeline and see this pipeline, diabetes training pipeline, right? So diabetes training pipeline, this is a pipeline, right? Let's open it. So these are the prepare data and train and register module steps, which we are able to see within the notebook widget. Okay, this all has been completed. You can see and view the data and prep data, and also train and register model and output. Right. This is ROC. That is model package. So all this has been saved. Okay. And by clicking this, we can also publish this pipeline. But here we already did through SDK script, right? Now, let's go back. Let's learn diabetes pipeline created today. Then go back to experiments. This is our MS Learn Diabetes pipeline. We have already published this. We can go to endpoint. There are no endpoints as of now. Pipeline endpoints. From here we can see diabetes training pipeline endpoints. Okay, so this is the REST endpoint. Okay, pipeline parameters, none. Okay, this is the same pipeline ID that has been shown here. Now, once the pipeline has been published as an asset within our workspace, reset endpoint. Note that the published pipeline has an endpoint, which you can see as an endpoint page. You can also find URI as a property of the published object. Okay, when we click REST endpoints, we can also view the endpoint detail as well. Now we can call this endpoint by this one, authentication header ready. Okay, so we can use interactive login authentication package from this Azure ML core authentication, and then pass on the interactive authentication header, and then authenticate against that REST endpoint, and then we can make a HTTP request to that endpoint. And here we can see a new ID, run ID has been created. Now this is being run. Okay, so new experiment on the pipeline will run here. So let's publish that and run it. So here it is running that new pipeline, or basically the instance of the same pipeline with a new ID. Okay, and pipeline execution summary, it has finished, and we can schedule the pipeline to run it every Monday based on this time. We can change this interval every week we want, every day we want, what time of the day we want. Okay, through that we can schedule our pipeline for execution. Okay, I'm not going to run this, or let's run it. Okay, so this will schedule a pipeline. Pipeline has been scheduled. We want to look at what all the schedules we have set for our pipeline. We can just list down the schedule information. So this is the ID, the pipeline name. This is going to run weekly. This status is showing active, that means it has been scheduled. Pipeline ID name is also showing. Endpoint ID is not shown here. It runs here at this time on Monday every week. So every Monday is going to run, okay, at this time. Okay, and then you can check the latest run like this. So all the latest run we can list down here, okay, for our pipeline. So this is one. Okay, all this information being shown here. I have submitted that. So all the latest executions of our pipeline, we can search it. So basically for this pipeline, you're passing the name of the pipeline, and from all the experiment list, we're searching for this particular pipeline, and then we are printing it, all the details related to that pipeline execution. So this is what we wanted to demonstrate here, how we can create automated pipelines for automated deployment, right? Automated data preparation, running the model onto the training and test data set, predicting the right values, and then saving that model, registering that model, registering the data set as an asset, registering the pipeline as asset, and the experiment as asset, exposing our pipeline as endpoints so that it could be reused again and again, right? So that's about working with the pipeline within Azure Machine Learning Studio. I hope you liked it. If in any way this is helping you, please like and subscribe my videos. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.